Hey, everybody, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Always fun to do these.
So today, we're going to be looking at
hmm
some timeless wisdom about making tough choices.
Yeah,
And I think it's something we can all relate to. You know
absolutely.
those moments where you're just like, which way do I go with this?
Yeah,
So we're going to be exploring Proverbs 3.3 to 7 today.
great passage.
And, this is something that
Mm.
it comes from a Christian tradition.
Right.
But honestly, the wisdom here about
Yeah.
character-seeking guidance and staying humble,
hmm
it speaks to everyone, no matter your background.
I think that's what's so cool about these ancient proverbs is how they still resonate with
Totally.
us today. We're
Yeah.
bombarded with choices constantly,
Yeah.
and this passage gives us a framework for navigating that complexity.
Right off the bat, it highlights how impactful our choices are.
Mm.
And, it's not just about us.
For sure.
It's like every decision we make creates this ripple effect that touches those around us too.
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder that we're not isolated individuals,
Right.
Our choices are interwoven with the lives of others,
Yeah.
and this passage encourages us to consider that impact.
So then where do we start? Like when you're facing a tough choice,
Yeah.
Proverbs 3.56 really stood out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Trust in the Lord with all thine heart
Okay.
and lean not into thine own understanding.
Yeah.
Basically saying don't rely solely on your own logic.
Don't just go with your head.
Yeah.
What's interesting here is this balance that it strikes,
Right.
It doesn't dismiss logic entirely,
Yeah.
but it reminds us that even our best reasoning can be limited by our own experiences, our biases. And so it encourages us to acknowledge that we might have blind spots
For sure.
and be open to a wisdom that's beyond our own limited perspective.
Yeah. It's like that time I got offered a new job.
Oh.
And on paper, it was perfect.
Yeah.
More money, a fancy title. And I just went full on spreadsheet mode,
Yeah.
weighing pros and cons.
Yep.
But I completely overlooked how those longer hours would affect my family.
Right.
It's like my logic blinded me to the bigger picture.
Classic example of how our limited perspective can really lead us astray. We get so focused on one aspect of the decision that we miss crucial details. And this proverb is saying, hey, step back, get a wider view.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop there.
Nope.
It also emphasizes the importance of mercy and truth.
Okay.
Bind them about thy neck.
Okay.
It's like saying never leave home without them.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we live that out?
So this is where integrity really comes into play.
Yep.
It's not just about what benefits us personally, but about acting in a way that aligns with a higher moral code.
Okay.
So let's say you're faced with a choice at work. You could take credit for a colleague's idea to get ahead.
Ooh, yeah.
Or you could speak up and acknowledge their contribution.
Yes.
That's where integrity comes in.
It's that choosing the harder right over the easier wrong.
Yeah.
Even when no one's watching.
Exactly. And this proverb suggests that when we act with truth and mercy, we earn favor, not just with God, but with people too.
It makes you wonder, though, how do you balance those two
Right.
when they seem to pull us in different directions? Like, should you tell a friend a hard truth that might hurt them?
Yeah.
Or protect their feelings?
That's where discernment comes in, that inner compass that helps us navigate these gray areas where the answers aren't so black and white. And it involves tuning into our intuition, weighing the potential consequences,
Yeah.
seeking wisdom beyond our own limited understanding.
Okay, but then the proverb throws in this curveball. It's like a warning.
Okay.
Be not wise in thine own eyes.
Don't get cocky.
Yeah, it's a reality check for sure.
It is a reminder to stay humble because pride can make us resistant to feedback
Oh, yeah.
and blind us to those crucial insights that could actually help us make a better decision.
We've all been there.
We have.
Thinking we know best
Yeah.
and dismissing advice,
Yep.
even from people we trust.
Oh, yeah.
It makes you realize how much our ego can get in the way.
It's a human tendency,
Yeah.
but recognizing it is the first step to overcoming it.
So how do we put all this wisdom into action?
Yeah.
It sounds great in theory,
Right.
but how do we actually apply these principles in our daily lives?
Well, the beauty of this passage is that it actually gives us some very practical steps.
Okay.
The first one is really simple. Seek guidance.
Okay.
Don't try to go it alone, whether it's through prayer, meditation journaling, or seeking advice from trusted mentors.
Yeah.
Taking that time to reflect and connect with something larger than yourself can provide a lot of clarity and direction.
It's like you're in that decision-making maze,
Yeah.
and you pause for a second to get a bird's eye view.
Exactly. Instead of rushing in blindly, we take a step back. Ask for help, ask for a different perspective, and that's a key element of making wise choices.
So what about that next step?
Right.
You mentioned integrity earlier.
Right. So it's not just about avoiding outright dishonesty, but it's about consistently striving to do what's right.
Okay.
Even when it's hard, even when no one is watching.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Imagine you're facing a major ethical dilemma at work where you could benefit from taking a shortcut.
Yeah.
This principle reminds us to pause and consider the long-term consequences of compromising our values, even for a short-term gain.
It's that internal battle between what's convenient and what's truly right.
And that's where our character is tested.
Yeah.
This passage reminds us that integrity isn't just about following rules, but it's about cultivating qualities like honesty, fairness, kindness, and compassion.
So it's about being a good person.
Yes.
Not just doing good.
Precisely. It's about who you are at your core.
And then that brings us to that third principle, embracing humility. It's about recognizing that we don't have all the answers.
Right.
We're all works in progress.
Yeah.
And there's always more to learn.
Absolutely.
This one's tough for me, I'll admit.
I think it is for a lot of us.
Yeah.
It's human nature.
I catch myself thinking, I've got it all figured out. And then reality hits, and I'm like,
Right.
oh, I still have so much to learn.
We all do. The key is to catch ourselves when those thoughts arise and actively cultivate humility.
So how do we do that? Is it about like forcing ourselves to constantly feel inadequate?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
True humility isn't about putting ourselves down. It's about having a realistic view of our strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
It's about being open to feedback, even if it stings a little, and being willing to admit when we're wrong.
So being open to different viewpoints, but not letting them dictate our decisions.
Right. We're not blindly following the crowd.
Right.
But we're also not shutting ourselves off from valuable insights.
It's like finding that balance.
Exactly.
And it's also about recognizing that we don't have to go it alone.
Right.
Like there's strength in seeking support and guidance from others.
Absolutely.
Like surrounding yourself with people who challenge you and help you see things from different angles.
I love that when we have those trusted voices in our lives,
Yeah.
we're more likely to make choices that are both wise and authentic to who we are.
This has been so insightful.
It's been great.
We've covered seeking guidance, acting with integrity, and embracing humility.
3 powerful principles.
Like 3 powerful principles for making wise decisions.
For sure.
But there's still so much to explore in this passage.
Absolutely. And I think the next part, where we delve into trusting in a higher plan, will really resonate with your current situation.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
Me too.
All right, we'll be back after a quick break.
So you mentioned feeling stuck at a crossroads.
Yeah, it's been rough.
Well, this next section about trusting in a higher plan might offer some comfort.
Okay. Proverbs 3.6 says, "In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths."
Go.
So even when we don't have all the answers, there's this idea of a guiding force leading us towards the right path.
That's a beautiful thought.
It is.
But it's also a little daunting.
Yeah. How so?
Well, how do we reconcile that with our free will? Like, if everything's predetermined, then what's the point of even making choices?
That's a question that's puzzled theologians and philosophers for centuries.
Yeah, no kidding.
But one way to approach it is to consider that we have the freedom to choose our actions, but the ultimate consequences might be beyond our control. It's like navigating a river. We can steer the boat, but the current will ultimately influence our direction.
So we're not just passive passengers.
Right.
We're active participants in our journey.
Exactly.
Even if we don't always know where we'll end up.
And this idea of trusting in a higher plan.
It doesn't mean we just sit back and do nothing.
Okay.
It's about surrendering our need to control everything.
Right.
And recognizing that sometimes the best path unfolds when we let go.
Okay.
And allow ourselves to be guided.
So it's almost like a dance.
Yeah.
Between our own efforts and a force greater than ourselves.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
And that trust can bring a sense of peace, even when we're facing uncertainty.
Okay.
It's knowing that we're not alone in our struggles.
Right.
That there's a source of strength and wisdom that we can always rely on.
It's like those moments when you're hiking through dense woods.
Okay.
And you stumble upon a clearing with a breathtaking view.
Yeah.
You didn't plan it. You just trusted the path. And it led you somewhere beautiful.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
And this idea of trust in the path connects back to the principle of seeking guidance.
Okay.
It's about being open to those unexpected sources of wisdom that might show up along the way.
So it's not just about prayer or meditation,
Right.
but also being receptive to the signs and synchronicities that appear in our lives.
Precisely. It could be a chance encounter, a book that catches your eye at the bookstore, or even a song that speaks to your soul at just the right moment.
Sometimes it feels like the universe is trying to tell us something.
Yeah.
But we're too busy trying to control everything to hear it.
That's why practices like mindfulness are so valuable.
Okay.
By cultivating present moment awareness, we become more attuned to those subtle nudges and whispers of guidance.
You mentioned mindfulness before.
Yeah.
I'm still a little fuzzy on what that actually looks like in practice.
Okay.
Do you just sit in silence and try to empty your mind?
It's not about emptying the mind.
Okay.
It's more about observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment.
Okay.
It's like watching clouds drift by in the sky. You notice them,
right,
but you don't try to grasp them or push them away.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So by practicing mindfulness, we become more aware of our internal landscape.
Exactly.
Which can help us make wiser choices.
And it can also help us cultivate qualities like patience, compassion, and equanimity.
Okay.
Which are essential for navigating the challenges of decision-making.
It's like building those inner muscles.
Yeah.
That help us stay grounded and centered when life throws us a curveball.
And when we combine that inner strength with a willingness to surrender to a higher plan, we create a powerful foundation for making choices that are wise and aligned with our soul's purpose.
All of this talk about trust in a higher plan and surrendering control, it makes me wonder, what about those times when we make a decision that we thought was guided, but it turns out to be a mistake?
Yeah.
Does that mean we didn't trust enough or that we misinterpreted the guidance?
That's a great question, and it's important to remember.
Yeah.
That trusting in a higher plan doesn't mean that we're always going to be protected from making mistakes. Or facing challenges.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes those mistakes and challenges are what lead us to our greatest growth and transformation.
So it's not about avoiding pain or difficulty,
Right.
but about finding the strength and resilience to navigate those challenges
Exactly.
in a way that aligns with our values.
Yes.
And ultimately leads us to a greater understanding of ourselves and our purpose.
Beautifully said. And this is where those principles we talked about earlier, seeking guidance, acting with integrity, and embracing humility, become even more important. They provide a framework for navigating those inevitable bumps in the road.
It's like having a compass and a map to help us find our way back on track when we inevitably stray from the past.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that even when we make mistakes, we can always learn from them and course correct. It's a continuous journey of growth and refinement.
I love that perspective. It takes the pressure off of having to be perfect.
Right.
And allows us to embrace the messy, imperfect beauty of the journey.
And I think that's one of the key messages of this passage, that we're not meant to have it all figured out. It's in the process of seeking, trusting, and surrendering that we discover our true potential and ultimately create a life that's both meaningful and fulfilling.
This conversation is giving me so much to think about.
You too.
It's like we've been exploring this multi-layered wisdom cake. And each layer reveals a new depth of flavor.
I like that.
We've talked about seeking guidance from both internal and external sources, the importance of acting with integrity, even when no one's watching.
Yes.
The transformative power of embracing humility.
Right.
And the peace that comes from surrendering to a plan greater than ourselves.
It's a lot to digest.
It is a lot to digest.
But I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is that making wise decisions isn't about having all the answers, but it's about cultivating a mindset and a set of practices that support us in navigating the inevitable uncertainties of life.
That's a great way to put it.
I think so.
You know what's really hitting me after all this? Is how we often think of decision-making as this big thing, like choosing a career or buying a house.
Right.
But what Proverbs is pointing to is that those smaller everyday choices, those are the ones that really shape us.
Absolutely.
It's the little stuff that adds up.
Yeah, it's the accumulation of those seemingly insignificant decisions that ultimately determine the trajectory of our lives.
So even something as simple as being patient in traffic or resisting the urge to gossip.
Right.
Those are like micro workouts for our character.
Exactly. Each choice is an opportunity to practice those principles we've been talking about.
Right.
Seeking guidance, acting with integrity, embracing humility.
It's like weaving a tapestry.
I like that.
Each thread might seem small, but together they create this beautiful design.
Beautiful and intricate.
Okay, but what about when you're stuck?
Yeah.
You're facing a dilemma, and the answer just isn't clear.
Right.
Our source material says seek guidance.
Mm-hmm.
But what if you're still unsure?
That's where discernment comes in.
Okay.
It's that inner knowing that helped us navigate those gray areas.
So like your intuition.
Exactly, that gut feeling that tells us what feels right.
But also being open to those unexpected sources of wisdom, too.
Right. Sometimes the guidance we need comes from the most surprising places.
Like a conversation with a stranger?
Hmm.
Or a random quote you see online?
It's about paying attention to those synchronicities.
Mm-hmm.
Those moments where the universe seems to be sending us a message.
Makes me think about that whole trust in a higher plan thing.
Yeah.
We talked about surrender and control.
Right.
Letting go of the need to have all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens when that trust is tested?
Okay.
When we face setbacks.
Right.
Things that make us question everything.
Those are the moments when our faith is truly tested.
Yeah.
It's natural to feel doubt or fear.
For sure.
But it's also an opportunity to dig deep.
Okay.
And reconnect with that inner source of strength and wisdom.
So it's not about pretending everything's okay.
Right.
But acknowledging the pain and difficulty.
Yeah.
While still holding on to that belief that there's a bigger picture unfolding.
It's about finding that balance between accepting what is and trusting that even in the midst of darkness, there's a light guiding us towards a brighter future.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is.
Especially for anyone going through a tough time right now.
And it reminds us that we don't have to go through it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Seeking support from loved ones or a therapist can be incredibly helpful.
We're all in this together, right?
Exactly. And sometimes just knowing that we're not alone can make all the difference.
This deep dive into Proverbs has been such a journey.
It has.
We've explored seeking guidance from both within and beyond ourselves, acting with integrity even when it's hard, the power of embracing humility.
Absolutely.
And the peace that comes from trusting in something bigger than ourselves.
It's a reminder that wisdom isn't something we acquire overnight.
Right.
It's a lifelong pursuit.
Yeah.
A continuous process of learning and growing.
And the best part is we're all capable of it.
Absolutely.
No matter where we are on our journey.
It's a gift that's available to everyone who's willing to seek it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
I
want to encourage you to take these principles and apply them to your own life in your own unique way.
May your choices be guided by wisdom, integrity, and a heart full of compassion.
Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, may your path be filled with clarity, purpose, and joy.